Positive Tuesday with Applied Behaviour Solutions. What's the best way to teach your child new skills? Are you showing them pictures, giving them something to read, talking and explaining, or maybe you're trying to get them to actually do the thing that you're teaching? Does it matter how you present new information? Is there a right and wrong way for your child to learn something? Is there anything that you can do to give your child a better chance of success in school and with new life skills? Today, we are taking a deeper look at the different ways that your kiddo learns and processes new information and how you can use this information to identify their strengths so that they are more likely to succeed. I'm Robin. I'm a behavior analyst and I'm one of the founders of Applied Behaviour Solutions. We started AB Solutions because we have a passion to help children, families, teachers, and other professionals who work with children to develop this potential in their kids. We believe in a world that is inclusive, accepting, and understanding for those who are different. We work with children who have a variety of specialized needs, and we provide one-on-one ABA services based on a program that's designed specifically for each kid. We specialize in childhood development and behavior analytics services, including reducing challenging behavior, reaching developmental milestones, acquiring foundational academic skills, facilitation, and school readiness support. We so believe in supporting the community, which is why every Tuesday we release one of these episodes to give you information that you can start using today. All right, so let's talk about learning. A learning style refers to the preferential manner that a child takes in, processes, and retains knowledge. It can be determined by cognitive, emotional, and environmental factors, as well as past and present experiences. So there are four main styles, which can further be subdivided into more specific styles, but for today, I'm going to just be paying attention to the four main styles developed by Neil Fleming. The VARK theory is divided into visual, auditory, reading and writing, and kinesthetic. I'll go over these again in more detail later on, and I'll give you some ways that you can use each style with your child. So how this came about was Fleming noticed a certain pattern during his school inspections. He would go into the classrooms of qualified and competent teachers and found that even though they were great at their jobs, they weren't able to connect with all children equally. So he started identifying different modes of learning and highlighted certain factors that may help a student more in terms of critical thinking and retaining knowledge. According to Fleming, a learner can't just change their learning style, as well as schools can't always easily accommodate for each individual's learning style. So what he believed was that if teachers and learners paid closer attention to the different styles of learning, they could alter their behavior to accommodate these preferences. So that's where we start off today. As a parent, a teacher, or a professional working with kids, you can make a difference to how your child is learning by familiarizing yourself with the different styles and perhaps changing the way you present your information or how you encourage your children to learn wherever possible. So to give you an example, when I create acquisition programs for the kids that we work with, I make sure that I pay close attention to their strengths and their weaknesses, and I make sure that our team of technicians working with the kid is using this and using these strengths to support their learning experiences to ensure that they are successful. Traditional schooling systems support text-heavy and logically presented information. And while this method is going to reach the majority of kids, it's not going to reach everyone, and there will be kids that are left behind. As a parent, you are probably going to become increasingly concerned when your child appears to be failing or not retaining information taught in class, or even after they've studied for a test the next day with you at home. It's completely natural to be concerned with this, but before you become too worried, I'd like you to look at how your child is learning, and if it's not successful, then perhaps the way that we present our information to the kids needs to change. It sounds like a lot of what I've spoken about is academically based, but the principles apply to non-academic learning too. So let's talk for a minute about kids who are developmentally delayed, and not even at the academic stage yet, right? So perhaps a child is struggling with communication skills and they only use a very narrow vocabulary. After watching this episode, you may see that perhaps you've been using a certain method of learning and they're not picking up on it. In order to learn and apply something, we really need to understand it first. So, for example, if your kid does have a narrow vocabulary, and perhaps the way that you're trying to teach them to expand on this is by saying it to them in the hopes that they will then repeat it later on spontaneously in their own vocabulary. And they just may not be picking up on this. So what you could probably look at is kinesthetic learning, where this involves experiences like we'll discuss a bit later on. But maybe what it takes for this kid to acquire that word to add to their vocabulary, maybe they need to actually experience. So while you're at and about and you see, maybe perhaps you walk past a bush and you see spiky leaves, show them to it, involve them in it, make them feel it, and that connection may be made just through them experiencing it in real life. All right, so that's just an example of how you can alter your how you are teaching skills. So let's have a look now at the different learning styles. So the first one is visual learners. So these learners they do best when visualizing relationships between ideas. They prefer learning visually, meaning that pictures and symbols, diagrams, these help them more, and when information is presented to them like this, they're going to be more successful in remembering it down the road. Being a visual learner doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to always want to see things on videos, but rather that they prefer information that is presented in patterns and shapes without the distraction of spoken or written words. Teachers can try things like explaining processes with a flowchart or graphic organizers. For non-academic learning, try using pictures to teach new skills. So, for example, if you're teaching your kid how to brush their teeth, then maybe they're missing a few steps or not remembering the sequence of the action that they're meant to complete. Try printing pictures of the steps involved in brushing your teeth and placing it on the mirror where in front of their basin so that they can refer to it easily and pick up on all of the steps. All right, so the next type of learner is an auditory learner. They prefer to hear information rather than seeing it. They are most successful when they interact with content that is heard or spoken. They also benefit by speaking out loud and hearing themselves. These kids may prefer to talk about their ideas and perhaps even have discussions with others about what they've just heard. It gives them time to organize patterns in their minds. So if you have a kid who does best with auditory learning, try having a discussion with them about the new skill that you're introducing. Another great way is to ask them to repeat what they've just understood from a specific discussion, or even try and teach you the information. You can also make a task more fun and vocally interactive by incorporating stories within lessons. For non-academic learning, record your kids or yourself saying what you want them to learn and get them to play it back. So, for example, if you're teaching them a new word or a new sound that you would like them to be saying, why don't you try there's some really great talking apps out there. I mean, one that is specifically entertaining for kids is Talking Tom, where you speak in to the app and it plays back what you've just said. Right, so the third type of learner is reading and writing. They comprehend information better when they interact with text. So this is the most prominent group of learners. Reading and writing stimulates this learner best with regards to input and output. They are likely going to enjoy using the internet or PowerPoint presentations, interactions with essays, and also using manuals. Younger children are probably not going to like this method of learning, but if you pair a written text with visual and auditory aspects, they're going to take in more information and start associating words and text with the mode that they do prefer. Because this is because this is the majority of learners and it's very common in schools to be taught in this method, it's worth looking at trying to teach your kid to make use of this method of learning and to really make that connection and association with this style. So as far as possible, it's really going to be a good idea if you can pair other styles with this one. So a nice example for this is to help younger kids with, let's say that our topic is sight words. We're trying to teach our kid a new sight word. Why don't you try wearing a name badge with the sight words? And your kid has to interact with you by reading the name badge on your top and calling you by that name. And you can change the name tag each time. It's fun, it's interactive, and it's very textually based. It also gives them a lot of time to practice within their interaction with you. As a teacher, you can support your class by exposing them to words and texts throughout the day. So especially from a young age, have texts all around the classroom. Label things. You can put labels in your house and your classroom to teach younger kids to enjoy text and for it to become quite normal. What I think it would be helpful at home when you're looking at non-academic skills is to, again, label things in the house. So for example, if you're trying to teach your kid how to pack away clothing, so they get their wash basket and they have to pack all their clothing away into a cupboard, why not print out the text, so the word of each category of clothing. You can put long pants, short pants, dresses, all the different shoes, all the different labels. And while they are packing away, they have to refer to the text to help them with this. For more non-academic skills, have text, so either one word, sentences, phrases, depending on where your kid is and how strong they are with reading. Have it all over the house that detail the sequence of an activity or as a reminder for them. So our last style of learning is kinesthetic learners, and they acquire information best when doing physical activities. These learners' perceptual preferences revolve around experiencing real or simulated events. Although this might evoke other learning styles, so for example, if you are learning to ride a bike, you're probably engaging in visual, auditory, all the different kinds of styles as well. But the key is that these learners are connected to reality. You can also include videos and movies of real life situations and demonstrations of skills, which they will then easily be able to take in. It's beneficial to introduce a new skill by simulating the situation and helping them through the process in real life so that they can acquire knowledge through doing it themselves. As they make mistakes, they're going to learn from this because trial and error plays a huge and integral part of this learning process. Teaching a skill set to a younger kid gives them the opportunity to experience this form of learning. So while they are physically completing a task, assist them where needed, but try and step back so that they are able to have more independent experiences. These kids learn best by touching, feeling, experiencing. Teaching, okay, so let's look at an academic skill. So let's look at teaching phonics, for example. It could be beneficial for you to use sensory items such as sand, sandpaper, Play-Doh, foam to practice the formation of letters or numbers. Tracing in the sand is just as effective. These kids are going to retain information better if the lesson was fun and interactive. Right, so now that we've gone through the different styles, I'd like you to take a second to think about a time where you've had to study for a test, or perhaps you've had to give a pitch at work, or had to comply with a new training. And I'd like you to think about the different styles that we've gone through and think about which of these four you typically use and which offers the best results for you. When we make use of our strengths, we are 100% more successful. So why not do the same for our kids? We all have our different learning styles, but it's also important to know that the more dynamic you make your learning experiences, the better your retention of the information is going to be. The trick here is to use your kids' learning preferences as a base. And once they understand the skill or information that you want them to learn, that's when you can make use of the other styles to further their knowledge and application of these skills. Another important note is that the application of learned skills ensures that you will never forget it, or it will be more difficult to forget it. Keep revising and practicing to ensure that skills aren't lost. So a good example here is sometimes you will see that your kid studies super hard for their test. They get an A in their test, they get 90%. They've done beautifully, and you think, my kid's so smart. But if you ask them that information a couple days later, they have completely forgotten everything that they've learned. So this is because they're probably not putting into practice, or they're not applying that skill that they've learned, and then it gets lost easily. So the more a kid practices a skill or information that they've learned and puts it into use in everyday life, the more likely they are to actually retain that information and remember it later down the line. Give yourself a practical example. Let's say that we all learned in this lockdown period, we all learned French. And as soon as lockdown is over, we never use it. And somebody comes to you a year later and talks to you in French. Are you really going to remember it? Are you going to be able to speak back in French? The chances are very slim. Remember that playing forms an integral role in development, and through play, many academics and non-academic skills can be taught. So it's really important that you incorporate play along with their learning style as often as possible. I really hope that you found today's talk helpful. I like to be brief in these. We've hit just under the 20-minute marker, which is great. I would like you to, perhaps if you have some time and you would like to have access to more of our informative episodes, go ahead and visit our YouTube account, where all of these episodes get uploaded automatically after we're live, and then you'll have more resources, and you can share it with other parents that you think, or teachers that you think would benefit from it. I hope you have a good rest of your week and keep safe. Bye, everyone.